What is up, guys? So we are gonna move on to the next section here. We just finished the grammar section, but I did want to go over this section right here. It's the exercise section. I found that a lot of people, have a hard time with this section because the answers they don't have. They're kind of meant for a classroom setting, I suppose. There's a lot of material here, so I figured that I would go over this with you guys and try to explain things in as much detail as possible for you guys here. So let's see if we can continue here. I'm going to start off with the expressions and I'll try my best to explain what each expression means in a little more detail than what this textbook is saying. So let's start off. Ano, this first one right here, ano. Ano indicates that you have some reservation about saying what you're going to say next. This is just a fancy way of saying um if you're saying if you're connecting between two words and you're thinking but you don't have the words, it's not you're thinking of the words, you're trying to think of the words, you would say like and I mean in English we say it all the time, but in Japanese this is their way of saying so you would say, like, for example, 大学生ですか? And you're just like kind of saying, like, you're thinking of the word that's gonna come next, basically, and you're asking them, "Oh, are you a student? Are you a college student?" And this is another way you can, like, see right here. You may be worried about interrupting something someone is currently doing, so you could say like, "Oh, ano," and it's kind of just like getting their attention in a way. And you're saying like if you went up to someone and said, like they would look at you, you got their attention, and then they'll look at you and be like, "Oh, what is it?" So it's the same way, but like, so let me give an example real quick. In this section, you could just say, you could say, 弁護士ですか? And you can say, はい、そうです. So if you heard what I was saying there, I was just saying and it's just me just trying to think of the next word. It's just a filler word. It's just thinking, you're still thinking about what to say, and that's how it works. And just like in English, you would say so there's another example here that I wanted to go over with you guys, is that there's another way of saying which is right here, which is another way of saying so you would say that's another way of saying so there's two ways now. There's and then there's ano. So as you can tell, like, I'm like thinking, you can already see me that I'm just like trying to think of the next word coming up next, and that's basically how you guys would use it. And so you could use it in this way, and it's so very, very conversational because this is what they would say in everyday conversation when you're talking with someone. That was something that I incorporated early on in my conversation, and it sounds very conversational when you are able to use this in your conversations. Okay, guys? So that is how you say we can move on to the next one right here. So basically right here it says "はい, so "hi" is, of course, you guys know, means yes, and it's the most polite way of saying yes. Is a little bit more conversational and relaxed, and then the more informal situation is "un." So you would just say "un." "Un," I would say, is the most common that I've used in my conversations in Japan because I've been surrounded with Japanese friends and Japanese family that we don't necessarily say "hi." We don't really say We mostly say which is the most conversational way. But if depending on who you are talking to, if you're talking with your teacher, if you're talking with some sort of superior, you're talking with someone that you may not know, using is a little bit too casual. So I definitely recommend that you guys would say "hi." And if you were like engaged in conversation with them, you could say So let's say, for example, here you could say 大学生ですか? はい、大学生です. And that's polite form. Or you could say アメリカ人ですか? And then you could say そうです. That's another way of saying So des, if you guys do not know, is basically confirming. It's confirming whatever that they said earlier to be true. It's just like saying yes, what you said was true. Okay, and so des. And I'm gonna tell you guys right now, so des is used so much, man. This is just because when someone is asking you a question and they're confirming something with you, you could just say "so des," and you just be like, everything that you just said is correct. Yes, definitely. I think you guys can use this in everyday conversation. If they're asking you something like, "Oh, 大学生ですか? Oh, お医者さんですか? Are you a doctor?" Or like, 弁護士ですか? はい、そうです. Now, this is what you guys would say if someone was asking you, "Oh, are you a lawyer?" And then right here, you'd say, "Hi, yes, what you are saying is true." So that is the best way that I can explain that for you guys. It's so des. Right in hiragana, it's like so important to know this. And we will be going over the next one here. Actually, it says so desu ka. But for now, I just want you guys to know that so des is used very commonly, and basically it is just confirming what they're saying. Okay. And here, now we can use in a conversation here. So I'm just going to give an example here. 疲れてるんですか? Let's say, for example, guys, you just finished work and you're just like so tired and you are just down. In this conversation, someone would say to you, "Oh, 疲れてるんですか? Are you tired?" And you'd be like, 疲れてる, or 疲れてる. So this one, I would say, is used very often, guys, in conversation. It just means yes. And it's a more casual way of saying it. Okay, guys. Now let's move on to this next section here, which is そうですか. 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 It's used as like, oh really? Like, そうですか. Like, let's say, for example, you're having a conversation with someone says something surprising or something interesting to you, and you would say, "Oh, そうですか." You're acknowledging that you have understood what has just been said. It means, is that so? Like, oh, really? Like, is that true what you're saying? And I guess it's a great way to engage in conversation with a person because it's kind of showing that you have interest in what they are talking about, and you're saying like, oh, そうですか. It's like, now let me give you an example here. We're gonna say like right here. So, 私の友達は医者です. So basically, this is saying my friend is a doctor. And des is the polite form, of course. So when you're having a conversation with someone and they're saying, "Oh, my friend's a doctor," you could say, "Oh, so desu ka?" Like, "Oh" is kind of like, "Oh, that's cool," like that's something new, that's something interesting that I've never heard, and you're acknowledging what they're saying, that you've understood what they're said, and you're saying, "So desu ka?" is really. Is that so? And it's just a great way to engage, and that was just an example that I wanted to share with you guys of how to use so desu ka. Okay, and maybe you guys can start using that, and maybe if you guys ever hear it, you guys would be able to understand the context. Now, let's move on to the next one right here. It says pronunciation of wa, and we went over this in the other video of particle wa is pronounced. As you guys know, this is a hiragana ha, but if it is used as a particle, uh, as a topic particle, it is not pronounced ha, but it's pronounced wa. But all other instances of wa are written with wa. This is the hiragana for wa. So right here, watashi no. This is a wa. Watashi no denwa bango wa. And so this is the difference between words like nouns, like denwa bango is phone number, watashi is me, and then there's the grammar particle wa, which is using this grammar particle, and that's how you would know. Okay, guys. And now let's move to the next. So in Japan, there's something I need to talk to you guys. Like, something that I need to mention is that numbers are very different in Japanese. Like there's many different ways to say different numbers. There's so many different ways to count different things. I'm just gonna say straight from the start that it is a lot more complicated to count. It's a lot more complicated with numbers, but I will do my best to explain each one here. So right here, many numbers words have more than one pronunciation. Refer to the table at the end of this book for a general picture. Zero is 0, and then another way of saying 0 is rei. And then there's ichi, which is the number 1. Pronounces I with the small 2 and ipun. So see, you see right here how this is ichi, right? And this is pun and sai are just different ways of saying like 1 minute. Like we'll go over that in a little bit, but I just want you to know for now that there are different ways of pronouncing one. If it was connected with like 1 minute or 1 hour or 1 years old. So there's all different like ways of saying it. So I'm gonna explain that in a bit, but just know that there are multiple ways for now. Ni. Ni is pretty much used all the time. San is 3. So ichi ni san. For now, we should memorize ichi, ni, san, yon. Yon is number 4, and there's another way of saying yon, which is shi. Okay, I think just know those two for now. So yon, shi is another way. Go is number 5. Roku, roku is 6. Nana, and there's two ways of saying nana. There's nana, and then there's shichi. Shichi. There's two. Nana. Nana and shichi is 2 ways of saying 7. And then hachi, kyu, and ju is 10. So ichi, ni, san, shi, or yon, go, roku, shichi, or nana, hachi, kyu, ju. So I know that might be a little bit complicated, but as you guys start to learn more different words and how to learn different ways of saying the words, you guys will understand the difference of which number to use. And it's going to be going over it later on in this section. Now, right here, giving one's telephone number. The particle no is usually placed in between the local exchange code and the last 4 digits. So basically right here, you would say 0, ichi, ni, san, yon, go. And in between this number right here, you would say no. And that's why right here it says no. So in between these numbers, you would say no. But not these. This is the area code numbers, not between the area code and the first numbers, but actually between these two numbers. And I'm really not sure why, but this is just the way that they do it. If they wanted to exchange phone numbers, you would say 012 345 no 6789. Okay, guys, and that is just a way to give your telephone number to someone. As long as you memorize the numbers that we've memorized here, then you guys will be able to explain this and be able to say this to your friends or exchange numbers with people. Okay, right here, sensei. The word sensei is usually reserved for describing somebody else's occupation. Tashi wa sensei desu makes sense, but may sound slightly arrogant. So sensei actually does mean like honorable master. Sensei. If you guys seen Karate Kid, sensei is kind of like a high honored state or person. There's another way of saying teacher, and right here it says kyoshi. Kyoshi, and if usually teachers, they don't refer to themselves as a sensei. Other people refer to them as a sensei, because that is the respect that other people have towards you towards that person. But it's not good to have like arrogance and say, I'm this. So instead, there's a more modest way of saying their teacher, which right here it says kyoshi. Watashi wa kyoshi desu. Right? Watashi wa kyoshi desu. I am a teacher. And this is just a more modest way of saying you're a teacher. And I think it is really good to say it like this. It is more modest. You sound more humble, definitely. So That is what it's trying to explain right here. San. Now we did go over san a little bit. Basically, san is referring to other people, and it's a form of respect to another person. Takeshi-san, Su-san, we talked about. So that's just a form of respect to another person, but you would never refer to yourself. This is something you guys really need to remember here, is that you would never refer to yourself as san. You just refer to yourself as your name. Aaron. You would just say, watashi wa Aaron desu. You wouldn't say watashi wa Aaron-san desu. You would not say that. Okay? And it says it right here, son and other title words are never used in reference to oneself. And, professors and doctors are usually referred to with the title sensei. So, Takeshi sensei. And that's just a different form of respect. You kind of treating them a lot, with respect. Now, right here it says referring to the person you are talking to, the word for you, anata. So, anata, you wouldn't actually not say anata too much. It's not really used that much in Japanese. So, instead, what is more commonly used is if you were to refer to them by their names. So, that is something that they are definitely very common. If you wanted to ask something about them, you would say, their name, san wa Swedenjin desu ka? So this example right here says Hato-san wa Swedenjin desu ka? Basically asking, is Hato Sweden, a Swedish person? Instead of Hato-san, anata wa Swedenjin desu ka? It's kind of redundant because you're already referring to them. You would not say, in English this might work in a literal translation because Hato is their name, and then are you Swedish? Are you Swedish? But see, this is kind of redundant. You don't really need anata in this context because you are already mentioning their name. So that is just something that they, in Japanese, that they always do, is they just refer to people by their name. I would say for you guys too, if you guys want to address people, addressing them by their name is definitely respectful. Guys, if they were your friend, then just say hato. You don't need to say the san. And that's just, and a lot of people like to refer to people by their names. So, okay, now we're moving on to this next section right here, which is Japanese names. When Japanese give their name, they say their family name first and given name last. Usually they don't have middle names. When they introduce themselves, they often say only their family name. Here are some typical Japanese names. So here in English we say, "Oh, I'm Aaron Kawata." They say your first name and your last name, but in Japan it's actually it's opposite. So instead you would say your last name and then your first name. So let's say for example, Sato, uh, hajimemashite, which means nice to meet you. Hajimemashite, Sato Hiroshi desu. Sato Hiroshi desu, and that's an introduction to yourself. You're saying Sato. It's my last name, Hiroshi. It's my first name. Okay, guys? And that is just the way to introduce yourself. They often use your last name first, then your first name last. I mean, this is just like formal, more like a formal way of introducing yourself. Like if you were trying to introduce yourself in front of a classroom, or if you are in kind of like a formal, a little bit more formal setting, you would use this type of introduction, like an interview, or but like if you were just like with your friends, you could just be like, "Hajimemashite, Aaron desu." Like you can just say your first name. Like that's, I feel like saying that when you first meet someone is just, I think it's just normal. I think it's very normal. You don't have to say like your whole last name and first name. Well, when you're first introducing yourself to someone, if it's your friend or unless it's like your superior or something, you don't really need to do that. I would just say Aaron des. Just say your first name, and that's cool. When you're friends. So this is just for like when it's a more formal setting.